riches, though, don't go to who said it best. Can I start over? I'm sorry. I'm so nervous today. I don't know why.
Take two.
Take two. Can I take two?
Take two.
I have to tell you, I am my own worst enemy. I have worked myself up to a hysteria over doing this presentation. So I want to thank you all for being here today and being a part of this evaluation. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Thank you. You know what? You're giving me my speech, right? Okay.
Make it as you make it.
Yeah, okay. So you're all entrepreneurs, right? You have big dreams. There are things you want to share with the world. Unfortunately, having a great passion and desire and a work ethic are not necessarily the keys to getting you to the riches you want. Often the riches don't necessarily go to who is best. The riches often go to the person who said it best. So that's what I want to share with you today. I'm Sally Raymond. I'm a world-class speaking coach and the owner of Expert Presentations. And I have so much information in my head about how to give a great presentation that in planning this, I have a stack of papers this deep. And I could probably talk for 2 days on everything there is to know about structure, the parts structure, you know, the foundational phrase, the anecdote, the reflection point, the technique, and the sell, right? I could talk about the 80-20 rule of you focused. But what I really want to get down to is what I call the heart of how to shine on stage. And it starts with 2 C's. It starts with your confidence, and it starts with connection. And that is really the heart of speaking. All right, so the first C is confidence. Have you ever been, like I was, or am, uneasy or nervous about giving a presentation? Have you ever felt that way? I have always felt that way, and I was even worse 8 years ago. Yet I knew that my future success depended on my ability to be a great communicator and a confident one. And you know what? Your success does too. Go. And now I can get out and give a great dynamic presentation. You know, instead of being so anxious, actually I'm just more excited to share my message with people than ever before. And the audience, they laugh. It's hysterical. In fact, the last presentation I gave that I taped, I had my girlfriend watch it with her young daughter who's in 1st grade. Her daughter thought I actually put a laugh tape on the video because people were so engaged. So how do you get from this place from there? It all starts with the ground level. You know, you just have to start. And every time you step out of your comfort zone and you present, it gets easier. And then you step it up a little bit more. And then you step up and you step up. And I'll tell you, one of the best things that happened to me years ago was I watched Darren LaCroix, the 2001 world champ, give his first presentation, right? He wanted to be a comedian. And he got up at Stitches, a comedy club in Boston, and he was doing the same thing. He was doing the shaking and he could barely, I mean, he was a wreck. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can do better than him. At least I didn't spill my water. You know, he was shaking his water like this, got his notes all wet. It was hysterical. And then, years later, he became the world champion, and I watched him, and I am in awe of him. He is dynamic beyond dynamic. He's fabulous. So you have to start ground level. Right? Because a lot of times what happens is you have to prepare for the unknown. Because in the unknown of what's going to happen, that's where the real fear lies. So to overcome that fear, think about preparing for it. Okay, yes, you're getting up. Someone's cell phone's going to go off, right? How are you going to overcome that? Perhaps your PowerPoint project isn't going to play. Are you dead in the water because you can't get your PowerPoint to work? A lot of people are. Same way with notes. What if your notes all fall on the floor, they get out of order? What are you going to do? How are you going to handle it? I have a friend, Lisa Ryan, who's a member of the National Speakers Association here in Ohio, and she's a wonderful speaker. She had to give a presentation to a group of high schoolers, and she was talking to them about confidence. Well, sure enough, Lisa trips and falls flat on her bum. Right? And Lisa is not one to wear pants to a presentation. So they got a whole lot more of Lisa than they ever anticipated. But instead of being on the floor being embarrassed because a bunch of teenage boys saw her, right? She got up and she used it as a teaching moment. She laughed at herself and moved on. When you know how to recover, your audience recovers with you. And if your fear is you're going to go blank and you don't know what to say, think about this. How many times during the day, during a conversation with someone, do you say, oh my gosh, I just forgot what I was going to say, and then you just move on? Why is it when you're up here, all of a sudden, it gets really weird? Be comfortable, be confident, and prepared for anything. All right, the last point on confidence I want to share with you. I'm not going to share it with you just yet. I want you to play along with me, okay? All right, I want you all to stand up. Now, for just a second, think about a presentation that you found really difficult or that you were really nervous about and how that felt, right? Okay. Now, I want you to put your hands on your hips, step your feet apart like this, and assume the Superman Wonder Woman pose, right? Take a deep breath and think about this. You are brilliant at what you do. Others want and need to hear from you. And you can do this. You can rock this. So how does that feel? Does that feel pretty good?
Yeah.
Yeah! All right, thank you. Thanks for playing along. And the final piece of confidence is S. Shift your mind. When you take the focus away from yourself and focus instead on what you want your audience to get from you, everything changes. All right. So now I'm going to move on to the second C, and that is connection. Do any of you know a teenage boy? All right. I have a teenage son. His name is Matt. He's 17 years old, and for the last handful of years, when I ask him, so Matt, how was your day? He just looks down at me and says, it was school, Mom. Like, and then one day, I asked my usual question, and he said to me, oh, we heard a speaker today. Her name was Lima Bowie, and she's the Nobel Peace Prize winner from Liberia, and she was awesome. I'm thinking in my head, oh my gosh, we're actually going to have a conversation. But then I know, right, that if I get too excited, I'm going to spook him. So I just say, well, yeah, okay, well, what does she have to say? Well, she used the words that we use. She would use our vocabulary like swag, and it was if someone coached her. And her message was, it didn't matter whether you had swag or you were a nerd or a geek, but that you had the power to change someone else's life and make it better. That is really powerful. So what I want to share with you today about connection, I learned from Lima Bowie. Even though I never saw her and I couldn't get any more information out of my son, I did call his teacher, who actually was kind of the meeting planner of her being at his high school, and asked her what happened. And she said something very interesting to me that I wasn't expecting, because I thought she just went, gave this presentation, talked to the kids in their language. No. She started out behind the podium, prepared to give her talk. Now, I happened to watch her talk, a TED Talk of hers on YouTube, and she talked about all the horrific things going on in her country, all the war, the violence. There's a lot of sexual abuse going on of women in general, and how she organized women to overcome these obstacles. And it's a very, very powerful story. But she started to tell that story, and an interesting thing happened. You have to realize that all these students had already read her book. They already knew her story. Yet what they didn't know was Lima herself, or the message that she wanted to share with them. So in that moment, she did a very brave thing. She stepped away from the podium and began to talk to them in their own language and relate to them on their own level. And that is when she made the connection. So the first key to connecting is to be when you're up in your head thinking thoughts of what you're going to say next, you are not with the people around you. You are up here. And goodness knows if you lose track of what's going on your piece of paper, you've not only lost your place, you've lost your audience. So be authentic. Be comfortable enough to got to start from within yourself to come up with the greatest messages. I know for me that a lot of times when I'm just speaking extemporaneously, I come up with a lot better stuff than I ever did trying to push it out, make it work on paper or just in my own head. So be authentic. The next is don't just get up and spew stuff, right? How many times have you been to a networking event and someone comes up to you and they want to talk to you and they tell you about themselves and all they do is smack you with stuff. Oh, I'm so-and-so and this is what I do and blah, 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 blah. And you kind of like glaze over and shut down and like, okay, that's nice, thanks, nice to meet you. But you never really connected because they never gave you a chance to be heard. As someone already said today, speaking is a conversation. And you need to invite people in. Some of the ways to do that is when you're giving your presentation, you want to use what is called the 80-20 rule. And that is, focus most of what you say using you. Talk to them as though you're talking to one, even if it's a whole group. He started out his email with hospitals, trade shows, outdoor events, convention and visitors bureaus, and universities are continually looking for new ways to improve visitor experiences in a meaningful way. And what he does is he has a mapping system, a GPS system, business. So we changed the intro to his email and see if this connects better with you. Halls of an unfamiliar hospital often lead you to uncertainty, upset, and even fear. To know the path moves the experience from intense frustration to calming reassurance. How different was that? Can you feel the difference? Do you feel connected? Do you want to know more now? Is care. In the words of Les Brown, you need to care more about what others need to hear than what you do about your message. So, from my heart to yours, go out with confidence and connection to get to the heart of your message.